Welcome to Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. We're live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action app and YouTube channel. On today's show, Stuckey is going to drop by to talk about the men's college basketball slate. And we also have golf picks from Spencer Aguiar. But we're going to start in the NBA with a controversial ending to last night's Pistons-Knicks game. Pistons, as 11-point dogs, were up one as Jalen Brunson missed a three with 20 seconds left. Multiple turnovers occurred, but the ball ended up in Josh Hart's hands for the go-ahead layup. Afterwards, NBA officials said a foul should have been called on Dante DiVincenzo. That would have preserved the Pistons' lead. Their moneyline odds were plus 475. As we bring in Jay Money. So a wild final possession at MSG. And if that wasn't enough, Jaden Ivey points props were in jeopardy because he was pulled with about 16 minutes left. Does gambling Twitter have a legitimate beef with this game?
Yeah, huge beef. It's just crazy, Maria, because I was watching the game and I kind of saw that Ivy got like a tad banged up. He just had like a very small limp. I always look for things like that, especially when teams are on a back-to-back. So this morning I'm like, all right, let me look at Jaden Ivey injury. Just typed it in on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, I just want to see. And then it was all these things pulled up about like conspiracy or how it was possibly fixed or Jaden Ivey, how he didn't go over his points prop. I was actually pretty amazed. I was just looking to see if the guy was injured, and people are just going at the sportsbooks Knicks asking for refunds, all type of stuff, man. They were just saying, how did he not play in the for the fourth quarter and all this stuff, man? So that was pretty crazy there. But if you guys are watching the game, you have first off, you have to understand that Quinn Grimes had revenge. He got traded from the Knicks. He knows how to beat them as well. And ever since they put Quinn Grimes in the game, that's when they went on their run. They wouldn't have had that 1 point lead if it wasn't for Quinn Grimes. He's obviously a better two-way player than Jaden Ivey as well, man. So why Ivey can ball, he was only 3 of 10 from the floor. So you can't really be mad at the coach from taking him out there. I don't think that there's a huge conspiracy over Jaden Ivey of all players not going over his points prop. I mean, come on now. It's not like he's one of the stars of the league here. But first, I mean, another thing, that was a huge missed call there, Maria. Like, I mean, that was an actual tackle by Dante DiVincenzo there, man. It was a legal tackle in the NFL, but this is the NBA here. And like I say, the Pistons, they wouldn't have had a chance to win that game if it wasn't for Grimes. But yeah, maybe the NBA owes the Pistons one, hopefully.
Yeah, I wonder. And a lot of people saying that this is karma kind of coming back around and helping the Knicks too, because before the All-Star break, they kind of got a tough call with Houston. I think it's really hard, though, to explain that not only to Pistons fans, but I don't imagine there were a ton of Pistons moneyline bettors out there, but it's just a really tough pill to swallow in that situation. Pistons, though, on a back-to-back tonight in Chicago, how do you think they respond?
Yeah, it's even more tough for Maria when they've only won 8 games and haven't really had a chance to win a ton of games as well. But I am gonna back the Pistons here. I know that they're on a back-to-back. Let's just hope that they're not too down in the dumps of not winning that game. But don't look now, the Pistons have actually been playing really well. Like, that's why I had to watch the game last night. I was really impressed with Cade Cunningham. Duren has been balling for a while. I like what they have with Quinn Grimes coming off the bench. They got Fontecchio as well. He's been knocking down some threes. Other than Evan Fournier, I really like what I've been seeing from this Detroit Pistons team. They're 9-3 against the spread in their last 12 games when getting as double-digit underdogs, and they already beat the Pistons. They already beat the Bulls outright earlier this season as well on October 28th. So I'm going to take the double digits here, and quite frankly, I just don't think that the Bulls should be laying double digits here. The odds makers hadn't made them a double-digit favorite all season long. I don't see why they're one here as well. I think the Pistons are still underrated in the market, so I'm going to take them here plus 11. I actually gave out plus 12 last night on buckets, but as long as they're getting double digits, as long as everybody's playing for the Pistons and they're not resting Cade Cunningham, I love the Pistons tonight. I think they keep it going. I wouldn't be surprised if they shock the world tonight, Maria. Let's go Pistons.
Yeah, I'm rooting for them too after that raw deal they got last night. And not only did they lose by 2 to the Knicks, but their previous game against Orlando was just a 3-point loss. Jay Money, thanks so much for coming on.
Anytime, Maria.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Delara, and I've got a couple of my favorite plays for this Tuesday NBA slate. The first pick that we're looking at is Evan Mobley over 22.5 points plus rebounds. I think this line is a little bit low for Mobley, who's been absolutely awesome for the Cavaliers this season. While he's been ramping up from his return after injury, he's still had a fairly consistent floor of 25 minutes per game, with a few games over 30. His PR line is set at 22.5 for tonight's game, and when he's played 25 plus minutes, he's exceeded this line in 77% of games this season, while averaging 26 points plus rebounds. I like him to continue his strong play and go over his 22.5 PR line. The second look that we're taking is DeJounte Murray over 14.5 rebounds plus assists. This was bumped up a touch after his near triple-double last game, but it's still a bit too low without Trae, especially in this matchup. He's the natural beneficiary of Trae's team-leading 34.7% usage rate being vacated. Murray's used to handling this significant usage from his time with the Spurs when he logged a 31.5% usage rate in his final season, and that's about 6% more than what he's had overall this season. DeJounte's averaging 26.2 points, 9 assists, and 6.3 rebounds per game in 6 games without Trae Young this season. His RA line is set at 14.5 today at about minus 130, and this is a line he's exceeded in 3 of 6 games without Trae. This uptick is not significant enough, though, given with the line, especially because of the matchup. This is a game that should be played with a ton of pace. Atlanta plays at the 4th fastest pace and Utah at the 7th fastest. I like DeJounte to exceed 14.5 rebounds plus assists, and I can't blame you if you sprinkle a little bit of triple-double. Finally, we're looking at the Philadelphia 76ers against the Boston Celtics, and the player that I'm targeting is Buddy Hield, and I like Buddy Hield to go over 12.5 points. We're getting a slight buy low here due to the matchup against an elite Boston defense. This matchup against the Celtics, though, is surprisingly strong for Hield. Boston allows 3-point attempts at the 4th highest frequency in the league, but they're even more susceptible on non-corner threes, which they allow at the 2nd highest frequency in the NBA. This shot profile aligns well with what Hield likes to shoot. Hield takes about 2/3 of his shots from deep, but they are nearly all above the break threes. It's a tough matchup overall for the Sixers. However, having Hield as an outlet on the perimeter will be extremely beneficial to the 76ers. I expect Hield to exceed 12.5 points, a number he's exceeded in 6 of 7 games as a member of the Philadelphia 76ers. So to recap, my 3 favorite plays for today's NBA slate are Evan Mobley over 22.5 points plus rebounds, DeJounte Murray over 14.5 rebounds plus assists, and Buddy Hield over 12.5 points. Best of luck on your wagers today and enjoy the rest of your Tuesdays.
I'm going to go with Utah State at home. I think this is a really good spot.
So I'm going to go with a team that you've backed many a time in the last couple of years, Stuckey, and that's TCU. I'll take them plus the points in this spot.
I am taking Wake Forest here minus 5.5. They are much better at home. You look at their home road splits.
I do like Creighton here in this spot. If you can get 3 or more.
I'm going to go with a road dog here, taking San Francisco catching 7.5 in the Battle of the Bay.
I love BYU in this one. Revenge spot, a home buy low, sell high spot on the Cougars.
All right. What a showing on last Tuesday's BBOC. And Stuckey, you're going to be back with the guys today at 5 Eastern. But until then, we have you to preview tonight's slate. So let's do a little bet or pass, starting with BYU at number 7, Kansas. The Jayhawks are favored. Bet or pass?
I think that this line's a little bit too high. I don't have a ton of confidence backing BYU on the road. They have not been great there, especially their defense. In particular, their transition defense, which is always worrying against Kansas, especially in Fog Allen. But I think you're sort of buying low on BYU here after, they haven't been great over the past couple weeks, particularly on the road. But most importantly here, Kevin McCullough is going to be out for Kansas. I know that they were fine on Saturday against Texas. They blew out the Longhorns without him. But I think he's important. That's only one game. He's huge on both ends of the floor. He can create his own shot. He's also a great shooter from the outside, and he's their best perimeter defender. So I think he's going to be missed on both ends of the floor. I think you're getting BYU with some value here. It's scary to go against Kansas on the road with BYU. Go against Kansas at home with BYU, who's not been great on the road. but I think there's some value with this line, especially without McCullough in the lineup.
McCullough dealing with a knee injury. He is week to week. Okay, let's go to the Mountain West now. That conference, I mean, the standings are just so tight. We got Nevada at Colorado State, the home team laying the points. Better pass.
At this current price, I'm going to pass. I think Colorado State's a decent money line parlay piece, but these Mountain West spots, the prices get so inflated because the home teams usually win, and more times than not, they still end up covering. Key thing to note here is one of Nevada's better players, and Keaton Blackshear. I think he's going to play, but he was seen in a boot. He's dealing with an ankle injury. If he can't go, he's a huge mismatch problem for Colorado State, his size and physicality against that Colorado State backcourt. But Colorado State back at home after 2 straight losses. They have revenge here. They didn't shoot well in the first meeting. These Mountain West teams at home in these particular spots with the top 5 or 6 teams in the conference have been crushing, but that's already priced into it. So this is a pass.
Yeah, their last 2 losses were on the road. They're 5-5 in their last 10, 14-1 straight up at home. So there you go. And finally, another Big 12 battle. So Texas getting points on the road versus Texas Tech. Better pass.
I'm going to bet this. I like Texas here. Looking for a little bit of revenge. They lost the first meeting in Austin. Misleading final score. Texas Tech, very beneficial shooting splits. But I think the key in this particular matchup, Texas has a decent matchup here. I think they can control the offensive glass. They can take away the 3-point line where Texas Tech can be so dangerous. But I don't think Texas Tech's going to be fully healthy here. We still have to see. I think they're going to be game time decisions officially. But Warren Washington is enormous, especially in the defensive end, particularly at the rim. Texas Tech gets really small without him. He tried to give it a go on Saturday. Couldn't. He's dealing with a bunch of nagging injuries. I think Texas Tech would be smart to sit him out here on a quick turnaround. And then Chance McMillan, who missed Saturday, he can stretch the floor, one of their better shooters. I think there's a chance they could be without both of them. And without Washington in particular, Texas can get to the rim. They can control the glass here. I think this is a good spot to back Texas to get their revenge. Max Acemans, who's been in a slump, over the past 3 or 4 games, I think he can have a breakout game here. Doesn't have to worry too much about the size. I think he can get his shot off here, bounce back performance. Texas Tech, most importantly, just not healthy. They don't have a ton of depth. So I like the Longhorns here in a game that I think should go right down to the wire.
Very nice. Well, before we let you go, thoughts on the news that UMass will be joining the MAC starting in 2025?
I love it. Basketball fans, UMass basketball fans probably don't going from the A10 to the MAC, but I would say, look, you're probably going to have a team that can compete to get that automatic bid each and every year in the MAC. But just from a purely football perspective, I love bad football teams. UMass certainly qualifies. Get me more football during the week, midweek. My MAC manifesto, which will be out in August. I already can't wait for college football. Bring me UMass in there. I'm excited to add as many bad teams as you want to the MAC, and we can find ways to bet them in those midweek games in November. So I'm excited from a college football perspective.
Yes, UMass currently independent in football. I was reading that men's basketball has been part of the A10 since 1976. So yeah, definitely some nostalgia there. And the only A10 team to have made a Final Four. So yeah, I could see why the basketball fans might not be super.
Yeah, I don't know why they have to all go. Like I see that they're saying they want men's and women's lacrosse to stay, which makes sense. But the football team was already in the MAC before, and they were independent. Like you don't have to. Football should be treated separately. You don't have to drag everything because you want to improve. Like this is a purely football move, right? You're going from the independent. It's probably a downgrade in basketball and some other sports. Treat football separately. You already did. They're already independent. Like it's okay to do that. I don't know why they don't, but from a purely college football fan perspective, I'm excited, but it's probably not great for some of the other sports.
Yeah, so often football ends up ruling these decisions. All right, Stuckey, we appreciate all of the insight. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
To the PGA Tour, this week's event is the Cognizant Classic. Rory McIlroy has the shortest odds to win at plus 800, but then the odds jump all the way up to plus 2,200 for Cameron Young. Then it's Russell Henley and Eric Cole at plus 2,500 and Tom Kim at plus 2,800. As we welcome Spencer Aguiar back to the show, and the odds would indicate alone that this is a pretty challenging event. What is your view on why it's challenging, and how are you approaching handicapping based on that?
Yeah, Maria, I think we have a spot this week in the market where you have this volatility that you're going to get from all the water that comes into play at PGA National. The problem with that answer, and I would be fine taking on some extra exposure even with the extra volatility that's coming into the mix here, but I think books got transformed. They played this ultra conservative outlook regarding the price there. So it's like, I'll get into this a little bit in my best bet. We can talk about it further in the outright section, but you kind of said it best. There's 18 players in this field that landed in this 22-1 to 50-1 mix. You have Rory McIlroy bettering all of those options at his 8-1 price. I just think it's a really challenging betting board where you sometimes get these spots from sports books where they don't exactly know how to price the board. And when you get into that fashion, they clump everybody together. You get Rory thrown at the top to where, you can make, should be the favorite. I don't want to make that argument. He's number one in my model. He is a projected 9-1 golfer here, 9.5-1 golfer, depending on exactly how I ran my data this week. But it's a really challenging course just because of the way that the sports books looked at this tournament. So I'm going to give a head-to-head bet for my best play. It's going to be Chesson Hadley minus 125 over Matt Kuchar. I do think what classifies as a best bet, and this is a very negative approach I'm taking, Maria, but I think it's important to note, if nothing else, not every single tournament needs the same amount of exposure. You don't always need to find yourself in this position where you're overly attacking a board if there's not value. I don't think the profile is perfect for Hadley. He's had some struggles off the tee himself, but there were essentially 4 options that my model pinpointed that were going to be the top fade candidates to consider. And this goes into the secondary problem that I was just discussing of books really not wanting to give you some of these options here to choose from. So I'll just quickly run through these for the sake of transparency here. Cameron Champ would have been the top choice for me to oppose. There isn't even a matchup with him included at this moment. I thought Billy Horschel was getting too much traction for some of his past hometown success. You have one option against Thomas Dietrich if you want to take that on. Probably the right side Dietrich there. Very minimal edge. Alexander Bjork would have been probably my favorite fade candidate. He ranked outside of the top 100 overall. You aren't going to find a book with him where there's a matchup. So when books don't want exposure to an event, you really get into this convoluted spot trying to handicap the board. For me, Kuchar was someone where you could find a few traits when it came to his short game and his past Bermuda play, if trying to pinpoint better safety than the 4 missed cuts in 5 tournaments that he's presented. However, I think we're dealing with a golfer here who massively is going to falter when diving into many of the main bullet points. He ranked 118th in my model out of 144 golfers in this field for weighted proximity at PGA National. He also generated 113th place grade for ball striking when adding his driving totals to the mix. That recent production, whether you're looking at hard to score venues, that barely cracked the top 100. The same output occurred when you look into weighted strokes gained total. Like, Maria, I would be naive here if I said there isn't some miscut versus miscut potential that's going to come into play on both sides of this wager. But I'm going to take on Kuchar's profile. I thought it was the one spot in the market where I could actually oppose one of the golfers that I wanted to. And I think there's something to be said about Hadley's overall safety rating, just with the 11 out of 12 cuts that he's made. Not so sure this is necessarily the best course fit for him, but I also don't think we need that high-end output from Hadley to necessarily get over the finish line here against Kuchar.
Well, as always, we appreciate the transparency and the precision with which you looked at all of these different head-to-head matchups. But if you had to pick somebody to win outright, who would that be?
So I went with Steven Yeager at 40-1. I know the results over the past year haven't always hit the mark for bettors. There's been a lot more safety than upside when you dive into some of his results, but we're looking at a golfer who's demonstrated some of that potential of upside on the Korn Ferry Tour. When you look into him winning 6 times between 2016 to 2021, I realize some of the PGA success has been limited until recently, but finding a golfer in this field at this sort of a price tag that's going to provide a better mixture of safety and upside is almost impossible when we dive into the metrics. 22 consecutive made cuts, That's going to blend well with his 2 top 3 finishes over the last 3 starts. And my model seems to think, and this is something, Maria, that my model has thought over the past couple of months, and I think we're finally starting to get the results here. It might finally be time for Jaeger to break through in a big way on the PGA Tour. Specifically, when we look at the trending stats, putting is a very volatile statistic. My model has tracked him losing over 3.5 strokes with the putter 3 times in his last 13 events. However, he's also gained a minimum of 2.8 shots during 4 of those other occasions with the putter. I think the boom or bust nature with that part of his game always plays extremely well at a ball striking course. You're going to get that form that's going to accentuate it with the immaculate tee to green game. He's averaging 4.175 shots to the field during his last 12 tournaments. You get a very similar return, whether you look at a golfer like Ben On, Eric Cole, Russell Henley, but those are also golfers that fit more into that 22 to 28 to 1 mix. This was the one price for me where I think that public perception of the lack of upside drifted this number into the 40 to 1 market. So I think he's very similar to those other guys that I talked about. He should be one of the favorites, but you're getting a price tag here that's a little bit higher at 40 to 1. And if you shop around, you can also find better than that price. So always do your shopping to see where you can get the best price you can.
For sure. And great analysis by you, Spencer Aguiar. Thanks so much for the time and good luck this week. Remember, any picks we give out here on the show, like the ones you just heard from Spencer, you can easily reference by following Green Dot Daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. And that's all for Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app.